Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today in War Thunder it is time to have a look at a vehicle that has probably been leaked once again through the wonderful means of Artstation. Artstation is a site where basically you can put up your artwork, and it's kind of used as a portfolio site for many companies which deal with graphic design. And once again, earlier today, it seems like this image of the Puma IFV was uploaded there by a specific company. So, we're going to, in this video, talk about the history of the Puma IFV and also talk about its implications in the game in a little bit, because as we can see from this picture and also some of the stuff that we'll go through in a second, it's looking pretty legitimate when it comes to it actually coming to the game. Now, obviously, we don't know when it's going to come to the game. Obviously, we don't know if it will come soon or if it will come in 2 years, but this, at least for me, is confirmation that this piece of material will eventually get here, and it makes sense to get here. You know, the Puma IFV is one of those vehicles which is very similar to a lot of other ones that we have in game, if not a little bit more modernized in its approach, but it would be, you know, nice to see at the higher echelons of the German tech tree. So if you don't know what the Puma IFV is, just as a little bit of an overview, it's the new IFV for Germany. It is set to replace the Marder that you can see here, and it's already replacing it. So the Puma has had a long development process. We're talking from the mid-1990s to 2009 basically, or 2010 when it comes to its design. It's been produced since 2009, and they've made just less than 300 at this point, with all of them supposed to be being made in the first batch, you know, a decent amount, 350 by the year of 2020. They were inducted into service in 2015, so this is technically a 2015 vehicle that we're getting added to the game. Now, there are actually some younger vehicles than it, the Type 16 of course, and also some other modifications for certain machines which make them very, very young vehicles, but this would be adding to that bunch of incredibly young vehicles that we see. So let's go through where this image came from. So it obviously came from Artstation. The reason why you know it's from Artstation is just because of the general look of it, and also what it says in the corners. We have War Thunder, Gadget Entertainment, and also ArtVostok. So let's go through the three things. Obviously, Gadget Entertainment, creators of War Thunder. We also know that they outsource a lot of their models, if not all of them, to other companies to produce, and ArtVostok is one of those companies which is heavily involved in that, especially from the modern point of view. Now, when you actually search for this thing, it brings this image and a 404 error. So this shows that the page did exist. Unfortunately, nobody was able to archive the page at the time, because if you actually have a look at the link to this, there should actually be more than this picture. There technically should be at least 3 pictures of this, just looking at, you know, the web link, but unfortunately we only have 1. So this brings up a 404 error, showing that this was deleted. This is normally at least a little bit of a confirmation that this was not supposed to be released to the public right now, otherwise you know, it comes up a little bit later. And then if we actually have a look at ArtVostok themselves, this is their website. All of the links to this stuff will be in the description if you want to have a look. And about us, it says, in our company we have gathered the most creative people under one roof, so we can create masterpieces of computer graphics. ArtVostok successfully realized itself in such directions as the development of games and game characters, game environment, weapons, vehicles, creation of concept art, and also animation. And if you go to their projects section, which is right here at the top, what you'll find is they work, when it comes to their customers, with people like Nival, 1C Last Level, and of course Gadget Entertainment. So by clicking on the wonderful Gadget Entertainment thing, let's try that again. It actually brings you to the Russian Gadget Entertainment part, which is definitely a very interesting website. But if you actually go over to the Artstation of, if you go to the Artstation of ArtVostok, what will happen is it will bring up a bunch of vehicles that you can see here that they've modeled in the past. So this is the T80U that they have created. And by the way, just as a little bit of a tidbit, you can go onto their Artstation, and as I said, I'll I'll leave a link in the description, and you can download any of these. And they are incredibly high resolution. They are incredibly good for stuff like wallpapers, or just putting together in like little areas if you need like just random pictures and really high quality, high definition pictures of the models. This is the place to get them from. There is also a lot of other ArtStation people out there, such as a guy called Hibikirus, and I'll make sure to leave a link in the description for him, because he makes stuff like this. And for me, I think this is some of the best work that I've ever seen when it comes to War Thunder and when it comes to the creation. Hibikirus also makes a few other things. He makes some beautiful wall arts that you can see here, such as the Zero versus the Corsair, the IS-3, and also makes a few lewd things as well. But it is how it is. He's done a little bit of work for Gaijin in the past, or at least it seems to be. But these layout schemes, these are just amazing. Like, look at this. Isn't this absolutely beautiful? So yeah, shout out to Hibikirus for making some wonderful artwork. Back to, back to the big company ArtVostok. So they've made stuff like the T80U in the past, the F3D, and also the T80B, T95, as you can see, the Katusha, all of these wonderful things for War Thunder. And one thing you can do if you have a look at some of these, you can generally look at the lighting choices which have been made for these images and realize that it is incredibly similar to the lighting choices that were made for this image right here. The general overlook, the general contrast of the colors, the general lights that you see all seem to fit a pattern, and that pattern is, the same one that we see from ArtVostok in their other stuff as well. The general layout of this, you can see the lights right here and then the lights here, very similar illumination scale, very similar colors and all of that stuff. Everything looks insanely similar to this, so that gives even more credence to this machine. Now, generally, what happens with stuff is something is released like the T80U, and then ArtVostok a little bit later on will actually release it, release it a long time after. So a example of this is the T80U was added into the game, I think about a year ago, or maybe even more, and recently, of the 3rd of February, they actually made a Twitter post talking about the T80U, its in-game model, and also a bunch of really cool high-res pictures on their Twitter. And this was obviously, at least half a year or a little bit more compared to when the T80U was added to the game, showing that what you shouldn't really be happening is having stuff like this leaked before it's released in the game. There's obviously some kind of agreement there, whether it's an NDA, whether it's whatever, or just a general, general agreement, like a vocal agreement. And yeah, it just seems to be getting broken over and over again by certain companies. So in my opinion, when I look at this, looks very legitimate compared to the leaks that we've had in the past, and hopefully at some point we will see this wonderful Puma IFV into the game. The history section though, so let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at the vehicle itself. So the Puma IFV is an interesting one. Obviously, being a modern style IFV, it has all of the general bells and whistles that you see from a lot of modern vehicles. It has a crew of 3, and they're all in an internal capsule in the center of the vehicle. So the turret on this machine is unmanned technically. It's completely radio operated, gun and systems and all, and everything is controlled from a pod inside the vehicle itself. And then also, since it's an IFV, it is able to carry 6 members of infantry, which is kind of nice. There is a problem though, and this is a problem which was detailed in, I believe, 2018. Let's see. Yes, in 2018, it was actually seen as a bit of a problem that they ran into, and it was the fact that they realized that the ceiling itself could only carry people who were under 6 foot. So anybody of infantry size or infantry members that would go into the Puma, if they were over 6 foot or 1.84 meters, they would have an incredibly uncomfortable time actually being in this vehicle. This was different to the Marder. The Marder actually could hold people up to 1.94 meters, 1.96 meters tall, meaning that, you know, it would be a lot less of a cramped environment. So yeah, you can see, even though some of the technologies on something like the Puma are much better than the Marders, there are some areas where it is still lacking, and it's generally the stuff that is generally forgotten about. Like, yes, if you want a lower profile, that is obviously better for general combat use, but at the same time, you're sacrificing the actual, not safety, but the actual, you know, size of the vehicle. Therefore, if you have larger people, e.g., you know, over 6 foot, they're going to struggle. Another thing that was also reported in the 18th of August 2016 is that the two-man hatch in the rear troop compartment cannot be hermetically sealed. So that means if there's heavy rainfall about the place, water can literally penetrate the IFV's defenses. So if there's a bunch of rain going on, this thing actually lets it in. Now, the IFV itself, the Puma, is pretty much designed as one, when it's with a specific armor package, it is designed as one of the strongest IFVs out there, and it's just really funny that it can actually be penetrated by water. Mother Nature can get into the Puma, which is hilarious. But as we said, designed to replace the Marder. And we haven't seen the Marder in game yet. Hopefully at some point we will. But the general characteristics that it improves over the Marder is your general stuff. So that we know about. Remember, this vehicle is fully classified as usual because of course it is a very much modern vehicle, being from the 2000s. But the stuff that we know about is looking very promising. First thing, of course, being the 30mm MK32. So this is the main gun that this machine has. It's a 30mm autocannon, completely radio controlled, fully stabilized, and all of the wonderful works that brings. On top of this, it has 2 types of rounds. It has a total of 200 rounds on board in 2 types of ammunition, which are available to use, very similar to other machines where you can just switch out depending on whatever ammunition you want. So it's a very quick switch, and it has sub-caliber fin stabilized ammunition, so APFSDS to you, and it also has an airburst round with a timed fuse. So this thing is not just going to be good at penetrating other ground vehicles with its APFSDS, it will also be able to go after stuff such as helicopters and aircraft because it has a 30mm high-firing airburst round. Now, this is something that we haven't seen too much, but think about if the BMP2 had an airburst round on its HE side of things. That's pretty much what you would be looking at when looking at the Puma. So you've got to watch out for that. It's actually known as, it's actually also, the fact is, the gun itself is not just the only thing that can be on this thing. The other thing that is also mounted is a machine gun, which is to its side, and that machine gun is a 5.56mm HK MG4 machine gun, and eventually that will be replaced by the MG5, which is of course the upgrade of it. It also has the capability of mounting an ATGM system. So this ATGM system, which I can't find a decent picture of, but you're just going to have to, trust me on this. So it has an additional weapon system on top of it, which is the integration of the anti-armor or multi-purpose missile system, the Spike. And this is actually provided by Eurospike. And pretty much what it is this is the Spike ATGM. I'll actually get a picture for you just to kind of show you. And what this wonderful thing is a very, very modernized ATGM. What this does is it is a tandem heat warhead on it, and it's obviously a 4th generation ATGM. on top of this, there are many different versions of it. You've got SR, MR, LR, short range, medium range, long range. Then you've got LR2, which is the long range version, which has increased armor protection. From what I've been reading and what I can find, the one which is mounted on the Puma is the LR version of this. So the long range version with a 14 kilo missile. It's able to, it's a 14 kilo missile overall, maximum range of 4,000 meters, which if you were actually using the LR2 would be increased to 5,500 meters. And this is a missile which is completely fire and forget as well. So basically you lock onto a target, you fire it, goodbye, and it's off. So you don't have to worry about optically guiding it or anything like that. But the Spike LR does have in it a fiber optic communication to and from the operator during flight. So you probably can control it a little bit, but at the end of the day, this is a fire and forget missile. It's also reported that it can penetrate more than 700 millimeters of RHA. It's also developed it's also deployed by Sentry Tech, remotely controlled weapon stations along the Gaza border. Of course, this is used a lot by the Israelis, since, of course, the Spike missile is actually from there, so that is something to look forward to. So we're not just talking about a machine here which would have a 30mm attached to it. It would also have probably an ATGM system. It would also have something similar with the MG5 or MG4 as well. So the general firepower of this would be very comparable to other IFVs that we see in the game, aka stuff like the Bradley, the Warrior, and the Baglet Panzer, with their main gun and then a secondary ATGM attached to it. So let's talk about its armor and how it works. So the Puma has two basic armor packages. It's got the A and it's got the C. It was first envisioned to have three armor packages. You'd have the A, the B, and the C. The A was designed as kind of, I suppose you'd call it the lightweight version, and this would be able to be airlifted. It was designed to be lifted by the A400M transports, the Airbus, and it still has a bit of issues since it's still a little bit too heavy, but it technically could be lifted by it. Then you've got the B version, which was envisioned to be a version which would be used on train or railways and stuff like that. And then the C variant, which was the combat package, and this was like okay, we're going to throw as much stuff as we can on top of this and hope the engine holds so we can protect the crew the most. So you pretty much got two transport versions, then a combat version, but the B version was actually taken away and seen as a surplus to requirements, because the C version, the combat package, could still also be used on railways. So technically there's only two versions, or two packages as it's known, of this machine. You've got the A version, which is 31.45 tons, and then you've got the C version, which is 43 tons. So they technically add about 12 tons worth of armor to this machine, which is, nothing to sniff at. That's a lot of stuff. It's also, the way that the armor works is it's external modules, so very similar to other machines such as the Leclerc. Many modern MBTs use this, at least from a Western point of view, where you can chop and change the external modules that you use. So therefore, this means that you can future-proof it. So if some better armor technology comes along, you can just take off the old stuff and bring in the new stuff. That's pretty much, how this all works. The Leclerc is one of those vehicles which has, this external mountings as well of armor, and also stuff like the Challenger, technically, where you can take off the Chobham armor. So yeah, it's something to look forward to. The main things, though, even though you have like the A package and the C package, the A package shouldn't just be seen as a package which only is good like for transport, right? It also offers a lot of protection. It has full mine protection, also ballistic protection on a high level. Obviously, we don't know how much exactly, but with the add-on armor, which is just easy to mount on the sides and the front, as you can see in the picture before you, this offers, of course, increased protection against ballistics, and also the main things that it's supposed to stop are handheld anti-tank weapons, medium caliber weapons, artillery fragments, and also bomblets. So this isn't something which is gonna stop, you know, obviously APF-SDS from something like, I don't know, a T-80. That's just not gonna happen. But against other stuff, such as, you know, artillery or other IFVs, this should be able to stand up in a very decent way. Also, because of the way that the crew compartment is set up, it's going to be kind of hard to actually kill it just because of what is mounted in the front of this and how it is all set up. So with the extra armor on top of it, yes, it becomes incredibly heavy, but at the same time, it should have decent protection. Now, when we talk about the power of the vehicle, you know, the engine which is involved, it has a very similar setup to the Leopard 2 when it comes to the amount of power that's available. So it has a 800 kilowatts power pack, and this is actually the MTU V10-892 diesel, and gives 1100 horsepower or 800 kilowatts, and the power to weight is 18.6 kilowatt per ton, and its speed overall for this is around about 70 kilometers an hour. Now obviously this heavily depends on what armor package you have on, but it is something to look forward to. Also, when we talk about optical and optronic devices, being one of the most modern IFVs in the world, it is also going to have some really nice stuff on it. You know, it has, of course, a panoramic sight for the commander. This is independently stabilized. There's a 360-degree rotatable scope with it, with an optical day side channel. There's also some other stuff, such as a CCD camera around the place. It's got a gunner's sight with an optronic day side channel as well. Also independently stabilized both sides, so several fields of view are equipped with identical thermal image sights and laser rangefinders. There's just a ton of stuff on this vehicle which makes it incredibly deadly. And as I said, you know, it's one of those vehicles which is the turret itself is completely radio controlled by the people inside of the hull, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works in game, especially if you're able to just kind of sit it above areas and just rat-a-tat people. Also, it'll be interesting to see if it gets the scouting mechanic. I'm pretty sure it will, since it will be a lightweight, it's quite a heavy IFV, but it's you know, still lightweight compared to some of the systems that we have in the game. It also has access to hydropneumatic suspension, because of course it does, and also there are some other little things to it as well, such as the fact that it's run into a lot of development issues, which is why its development process is pretty much over a 20-year period, maybe even more than that, because they started in 96, so technically it's 25 years before completion of the first batch, which is insane when you think about it, especially when you look at, you know, in the past how quickly we were able to crank out some ideas. But that also is a testament to the machine and how much, you know, how modern it is and how much they wanted to make sure to get it right. So yeah, it's one of those machines to look forward to. There's a lot of really cool stuff going for it, and hopefully in the game it finds itself a lovely place in the German tech tree. I'd much prefer to see a Marder IFV first, on top of stuff. I'd like to see the Weasel as well, you know, but if it is the Puma that comes first, I don't think anybody's going to have too many issues with that coming in, since it will be a fun, very fast vehicle at top tier, with a lot of elements which will change, you know, change hopefully a little bit of the meta at higher tiers. That's one of the problems I've personally seen when it comes to ground vehicles. You've got a very defined meta. It revolves around helicopters, MBTs, and the ADATs. Hopefully that gets smashed this year, and vehicles like this could easily do that. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Chris Giltname, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, and also Elove Goat and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.